Tron Legacy. In 2010, Disney released Tron Legacy, a follow-up to the 1982 film, which became a cult classic, and yet sadly, Tron Legacy was not received with the same critical and fan praise, and definitely has not become a cult classic. However, I really do feel it's deserving of another look at. So today, I recommend to you Tron Legacy. Not a perfect film, but one that I rewatched recently and can happily state that in my view, it absolutely holds up, and it actually isn't that dated at all, even by the special effects, though important to say that they really are not perfect. The film, amazingly, handles its characters very well. A film that has flawed characters, yet they are able to come out on top, after going through a character arc, and a film that, upon reflection, I feel tells a fantastic tale of a man who became a god, the folly of that man believing he knew what a god should do, and ultimately that being his downfall. Though it handles that particular element very well, as the godlike being ultimately recognises what he did and his flaws and accepts them, whilst also in that final act saving those that he loves for the brighter future and better tomorrow, which if anything is what a god should do if they existed. Tron Legacy follows Sam Flynn, the son of Kevin Flynn, now an orphan after Kevin Flynn vanishes one night, and as he was the son of the famed and legendary CEO of Encom, he holds the majority shares in this company. Now, not a perfect character and somewhat a little whiny and purposefully rebellious, he drops into the company once a year to pull a prank. This is our introduction to Sam. Now, it's genuinely a great opening to the film, because we see a few things in this opening that are not only foreshadowing, but it's also good establishing elements. The speech of Kevin Flynn, a foreshadowing element which is later a direct reflection of his mentality at the time, and when we see Clue's speech about entering our reality and world, this is again the almost godlike ego replaying itself in all of its flaws. Now we also see Sam on his bike with the haunting yet beautifully brilliant score by Daft Punk. In fact, it's one of their best scores, if ever. Now, it's not a full-on motorcycle chase that we see, but it's also something that establishes the man, Sam, as being able to ride and think on his feet, a foreshadow to the game's grid, where we will see him later on his light cycle. Now, after pulling his prank on Encom, Sam heads home, to which he is met by Alan, an old friend of Kevin. He's received a pager from Kevin's office at the old games arcade. Now this is our setup for the elements. We learn more about Sam's feelings of how his father vanished, and further establishing that this character, Sam, has flaws. The performance itself, it isn't terrible. The main take home from this is we are given a flawed character as our point of view for the film. It's part of good storytelling to provide these characters an arc, and this establishes that arc, or the potential for that arc, nicely. Anyway, from here, Sam heads to the arcade, his curiosity getting the better of him, and eventually finds himself in the grid. This is where we go from real world to special effects heavy viewing, and they actually handle this surprisingly well. It's not as jarring as one may think, and it's definitely helped by the fact that they have some practical sets to interact with, and the neon nature of some of the landscape is accented on the practical costumes the characters wear. It really brings it together in a much more fluid state. Sam gets picked up and thrown into the game's arena, interacts with Clue, and then gets rescued by Cora. The game's arena scene has nice callbacks to the opening of the film, but the main thing of note here is that Cora is introduced. This is our female presence in the film, and far from perfect. She's in fact childlike at times, but strong-willed and full of conviction. Again, this is another character that must go through an arc, one that simply isn't a Mary Sue. This is how you do characters. Characters, whether female or male, simply cannot be perfect. It's boring, it's unengaging, and this is a testament to how Disney can, when they want to, handle strong females. Cora has witticisms and quips, subtle little jokes and comments. Again, this is all a reflection of her childlike mind, her flaws, as it were. But it's very endearing. It actually helps soften her, taking away from her being just another strong female. It's really important, and again adds to her character being likeable. And then of course we meet our god, the creator, Kevin Flynn. Korra takes Sam to his father and we learn everything that's happened. How Clu was created to build the perfect system but ultimately went rogue. Perfection cannot have chaos. What Kevin thought was perfection as a flawed god was simply order. The perfect system must have elements of imperfection to be perfect, and thus Clu had been sent out into the grid with a skewed purpose, which ultimately came to be Kevin's downfall. Now it's an interesting element of the film, and it's one which I feel could have been explored a little bit more, though the subtlety of it is welcome, as ultimately this film needed to appeal to everyone, children and adults alike. Now the aim from here is to get Sam out of the grid, but Kevin orders them to wait. Sam and Korra disobey him and head off to Zeus, a man who can help them, played by Michael Sheen. And an absolutely fantastic performance it is. Truly, it's a real larger-than-life, embrace-all-madness performance from Michael Sheen here. We get a great little cameo from Daft Punk, which makes sense as to the context, as they are DJs in the film in Zeus's club. Now this is another way that Disney has showed that it can, when they want to, handle cameos. Now, programs come in and attempt to capture Sam and Kevin's data ring. Kevin saves them all and decides that they must head to the beam of light in the sky that is the doorway out of there. We see beautiful scenery and landscape shown here. Throughout the film's limited locations, in fact, they are all actually done with very, very fantastic precision. Limiting the special effects heavy locations plays to the effects available at the time, and it also allows the film to not age so much in comparison to modern day's tech. Now, we also get the final run to the outside. This ensues from here, and it's again here that we learn of Clu's master plan. Take an army to the real world and bring his version of the perfect system to humanity, a notoriously imperfect race. We also get the addition of the miracle people, of which Korra is one. In fact, she's the last of her kind, Isos. Now, it's a very subtle seed, actually, for a future sequel that sadly never came to be, but again, they actually handle these elements really nicely. It wasn't narrative overload, but they just slowly drip-fed extra elements for character motivation, as well as future stories. Something that is sadly lost in this day and age of blow-your-load all-in-one-go stories, especially those that are simply a film that serves as a teaser trailer for the sequel. Now we learn what happened to Tron. He got tortured and converted into Rinzler, and Kevin makes the ultimate sacrifice to save his son, finally proving himself to not only be a worthy god of the grid, but more importantly, a good father, which resolves Sam's resentment and father issues. It solves the grid's main problem, and as Korra and Sam ride off into the sunrise, not sunset, after escaping into the real world, gives us our setup for a very, very interesting sequel. Again, one that sadly never came to be. Now I will say of note here is actually Jeff Bridges' performance as Kevin, as he embraces Clu, embraces the ego and the kind of flawed imperfections of his old godlike narrative. That performance there is actually a touching performance. It's one of Jeff Bridges' strengths. Now Jeff Bridges notoriously generally just plays himself, but I do feel he actually stood up to the plate here and gave a very good performance. Now all of this is a very smartly shot, well edited and incredibly scored film. Tron Legacy is definitely worth another look. H recommends. And undoubtedly, and I'm sure many people will agree, hopefully I've sort of changed some people's perception of Tron Legacy with this video, but many people will agree that it's a true travesty that we never got to see any of these sequels. Now, numerous times people always comment on Tron Uprising, and undoubtedly, yep, that is something worth mentioning here, but the main point here is that Tron Legacy unfortunately didn't receive as much critical or fan acclaim as Tron. And genuinely, I really do feel it did deserve it. Now, hopefully, maybe in future, because Tron is still a relatively large name that is recognisable, Disney may look to revisit it. It would be difficult to say what they would do with this story and narrative at hand, because of course the actors, Olivia Wilde and the chap who played Sam, they are a little bit older now. It would be very difficult to revisit them, but potentially we would be able to revisit maybe their children, because undoubtedly that could be a narrative moving forwards. But anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so please do let me know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like and please do share it. It helps my channel out a lot, and it also just helps you guys get notified in future. It is one of the ways that YouTube begins to notify people if you interact with the video. Anyway, thank you so much. Take care.